Hello, guys. This is Sudarshana Starshine Star. How are you guys? It is a beautiful Tuesday. It's March 10th, 2026. I have a channel on YouTube. It's called It's the Dazzling of the Light, or you can just type in at Sudarshana Starshine Star on YouTube to access my well over 300 podcast clips there. I have a couple of videos of me actually speaking. If you want to see those, they're in a short playlist I created there. Otherwise, all my clips, you just scroll down to see different series I've created, like the Real or the Controllers, or what I started the channel with, which is a pretty good, I think there's 14 installments in this series called What Every American Needs to Know. So let's see, I like to start all of my clips off with the three opening prayers, which are very short. They're in Sanskrit and Telugu. They are the Guru Mantra, the Ganesha Mantra, and the Gayatri Mantra. Before I do that, I command on the sacred blood of Jesus the Christ to flow over and wash over and bless all of us and all of our human beloveds and all of our animal beloveds. I ask Yeshua to cast out all satanics, all satanic attachments, cast out all demonics, all demonic attachments, cast out the spirit of pain, cast out the spirit of fear, cast out the spirit of lack, poverty, scarcity, neediness, feeling that one never has enough. Cast out all mental illness, delusion, negative illusions, fogginess, fuzziness, lack of clarity, error think. Cast out all self-rejection, all self-dislike, all self-hatred, or the projection of that onto anyone or anything else, or the reception of that from anyone or anything else. Thank you so much, Yeshua. Please send your healing presence now. Please heal the wounds in our souls. Thank you, Jesus the Christ. We receive your healing presence, your blessings, and your divine protection. Amen. Svaha. I also command on the presence, the sacred, beautiful, divine blessing presence of Mother Mary and her beautiful welcoming arms to embrace us, to soothe us, to calm us, to uplift us, to install even more courage within us, to share her fiercely loving mother's heart, which has unconditional love, but also has a way of teaching and enforcing boundaries. For every good mother knows that proper boundaries must be used. That is the path and the way of the properly balanced child. Thank you so much, Yeshua. Thank you so much, Mother Mary, for everything. Amen. Svaha. Now to the prayers. Om, 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 Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshvara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam, Tasmahi Sri Guruve Namaha. Om Suklam Bharataram Vishnum, Sishivarnam Chatubhujam, Prasanavaranam Dhyaye Sarva Vignupashante. Om Bhur Suvaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhago Devasya Dhimahi Dio Yo Naha Prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Excellent. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Join my YouTube channel. Why not? Why not? It's pretty fun. Thank you in advance. So, I don't exactly have a title for this clip. Let's see. I think I want to call it, it's going to be something called Skyfall, exclamation point. Iran hit by new space weapon, and then something else I'll put. I haven't figured out the whole title yet, but you know enough. That's what it will be called. It will be called, start with Skyfall exclamation point, and then it will go on about the new space weapon that Iran was hit with today. Okay, but there's going to be much more than that in this clip. It's a pretty good one. So let's go. I'm first going to start with something from Dr. Steve Turley. And he said, we have officially now entered day 11 of the Iranian war, and the CENTCOM assessment of the damage to Iran is nothing less than cataclysmic. U.S. armed forces have struck more than 5,000 targets in Iran over the first 10 days of the conflict. Now, these targets include air defense systems, ballistic missile sites, missile and drone manufacturing facilities, military communications, infrastructure, and over 50 Iranian naval vessels sunk or damaged. Take a look at this footage. It shows the stunning moment the Iranian naval vessel gets blown up by Allied strikes. Marco Rubio yesterday confirmed that their navy is indeed being eviscerated. And Israel's bombing campaign is just as fierce. By day 4 alone, let's see, I lost my place. By day 4 alone, so this is by March 4th, the IAF, which must be Israeli Air Force, had already dropped 5,000 bombs on Iran, matching the total munitions used in the entire 12-day war in June of last year. By March 8th, the IDF reported approximately 3,400 strike sorties throughout Iran, with over 150 air defense systems disabled and approximately 300 ballistic missile launchers destroyed. If you don't know, the US and the IDF forces have divided Iran geographically, right? So Israel handles western and central Iran, where long-range ballistic missiles targeting Israel are launched, plus regime targets in Tehran. And the U.S. handles southern Iran, where shorter-range missiles targeting Gulf bases are launched, and has taken full responsibility of destroying the Iranian Navy. So when you add them together, the combined U.S.-Israeli campaign has struck upwards of 10,000 targets across Iran in 10 days, plus Israel's separate 600-plus targets in Lebanon against Hezbollah. CENTCOM, which is U.S. Central Command, just released footage showing a direct missile hit on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps headquarters in Tehran, obliterating the entire structure. The IRCG's Internal Security Command for the Tehran region, the same facility that coordinated suppression of Iranian protests, was also reduced to rubble. And at his press conference earlier this morning, Pete Hegseth confirmed that over 50 senior Iranian military leaders have been wiped out. Yesterday, President Trump spoke with CBS News on the phone, and he said, quote, "I think the war is very complete, pretty much. They have no army, no communications, they've got no air force." He added that the United States is very far ahead of the initial 4 to 5 weeks time frame. Here's Fox News on their analysis of the latest from the ground. Fox: "We are seeing far fewer missiles. It was actually a 10-hour lull in launches overnight as the Iranians are having trouble getting off large barges." And the president even said there were times over the past week where they fired dozens of missiles at a single time. And he told me there were moments when 100% of those missiles were shot down. And so what the United States has been able to do here, according to President Trump, is basically take out Iran's ability to respond. And while there are still missiles flying toward Gulf countries and toward Israel, their ability to attack these countries and U.S. forces in the region is being depleted. And then Dr. Steve said, you could see that depletion in real time as Iran launched 350 missiles on the first day of Epic Fury, to now, as of today, they've only launched 24. Same with the drone strikes. They've gone from a high of 541 strikes on day 2 to now just 95. And the strikes are increasingly sporadic and one might say spasmodic. There's little rhyme or reason to them. If you don't know, Iran's IRCG, their Islamic Revolutionary Guard, is comprised of something called the Mosaic, which is a decentralized defense doctrine that allows the IRCG to split up into 31 largely independent regiments in the case that their top leadership gets wiped out, which it has. So the Mosaic gives provincial commanders the authority to act autonomously without waiting for Tehran's approval. But its Achilles heel is that it's nearly impossible for them to launch coordinated attacks since so much of their command and control and communications capabilities have been wiped out. So that's why you're seeing these very sporadic launches that add on top of that the severe degradation of those forces in terms of their missile and drone capabilities, and you have precisely the kind of limit and depletion that we're seeing here in their retaliatory strikes. So that's the IRCG's response. That's why it's so sporadic and spent. And then from geopolitical, Zanello Rabuya at Ziri Buya, a blue-checked mark account on X, just posted this today. Quote, "Today's military campaign in Iran will be absolutely brutal. My sense is that during this first week, the U.S. delegitimized the Islamic Republic." And then Dr. Steve, he says, referring to the Ayatollah crisis with back-to-back supreme leaders getting eliminated. So the U.S. delegitimized the Islamic Republic as a functioning governance entity, and now they're in the process of delegitimizing IRCG as a functioning military, again referring to how the leadership is being vaporized. And other humiliations with the Houthis in Yemen not joining the fight and Hezbollah degraded. The military aim is to prevent in the next 10 years the reemergence of any threat and total elimination of basic ones, nuclear, missiles, etc. But the political one is to enable someone like Pezeshkian and non-hostile political actors to take over. You can call it regime change, but it's more of a restructuring, yes. And then Dr. Steve says, very much like what we're seeing in Venezuela, that's working out quite well. Now, what she's highlighting there is the very real divide, the factional division that's opening up inside the Iranian regime as we speak. Remember, Iran has a supreme leader and it has a president, right? The supreme leader is Iran's highest authority. He controls the armed forces, the IRCG, the judiciary, state media, foreign policy, and he has the power to overrule or even dismiss the president. He's appointed for life by the Assembly of Exports. The president is the head of government, so he's elected by popular vote every 4 years, and he manages day-to-day domestic and economic affairs, but he operates entirely under the supreme leader's authority and can't make major military or foreign policy decisions independently. So what these strikes have done by delegitimizing the regime with taking out the supreme leaders is, in fact, we don't even know if the current one, Khamenei's son, Mojtaba, is even alive. He hasn't shown his face since Operation Epic Fury began. But what creating a crisis in leadership is supposed to do is empower the Iranian president to step into the vacuum. And that's the Pezeshkian who she referred to there. So if you remember last Thursday, President Masoud Pezeshkian, I just know I'm butchering that, listeners, excuse me, actually went on camera and apologized. He apologized to the Gulf states for Iranian attacks on their territory, and he said that the Interim Leadership Council has ordered the armed forces to stop attacking neighboring countries unless those countries, of course, attack Iran first. So he was essentially waving a white flag to the region, clearly trying to find an off-ramp before the entire Middle East turned against Tehran. But, and this is key, at the very same time he's offering these apologies and said that they wouldn't be attacking Gulf states anymore, the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, they were firing missiles at those very same Gulf states. And then Dr. Steve starts laughing. So within hours of Pezeshkian's apology, I mean literally hours, Dubai International Airport was hit by a drone. There were explosions reported in Abu Dhabi. Missile strikes continued unabated across the Gulf. So you got the president of the Islamic Republic basically ordering a ceasefire, and his own military ended up continuing fire. And that signals a clear rift between the presidential faction and what's left of the Supreme Leader IRGC faction. And so that's why these strikes this week targeting the IRGC are so devastating. It's not just wiping out their military, it's wiping out literally the regime's infrastructure, again, so as to create the power vacuum needed for a more pragmatic president to fill. So that's what we'll be looking for in the coming days. The extent to which the IRGC continues to be decimated and the extent to which Iran's more conciliatory presidential faction begins taking power and calling the shots, and ultimately that would mean a decisive end to the regime itself. And then, listener, even though I should probably put this more towards the end of this, I'm just going to say it now, that today on True Social, Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump on True Social, he put this up. President Trump said, "If Iran has put out any mines in the Hormuz Strait, and we have no reports of them doing so, we want them removed," and he put this in all capital letters, "immediately!" Exclamation point. If for any reason mines were placed and they are not removed forthwith, the military consequences to Iran will be at a level never seen before. If, on the other hand, they remove what they may have been placed, it will be a giant step in the right direction, exclamation point. Additionally, we are using the same technology and missile capabilities deployed against drug traffickers to permanently eliminate. My microphone just fell down. I hope that didn't make a big loud sound, listener. Excuse me. Okay, let's see. Additionally, we are using the same technology and missile capabilities deployed against drug traffickers to permanently eliminate any boat or ship attempting to mine the Hormuz Strait. They will be dealt with quickly and violently. And he put this in all capital letters. Beware! Exclamation point. Then he signed it President, and then he put his name in capital letters, Donald J. Trump. That was today, and that was posted at 1:07 p.m. So then, Cash Jordan, he put this up today. He said, he started with President Trump saying, President Trump, they have no Navy. It's been knocked out. They have no air detection. That's been knocked out. Their radar has been knocked out, and just about everything has been knocked out. And then Cash says, so as the United States and Israel dismantle Iran's military, the true nature of this conflict is starting to emerge. Because while the remnants of Iran's regime attempt to dig in their heels while indiscriminately firing upon their neighbors, suddenly protests and pro-regime demonstrations are popping up all across America. Allegedly paid for by China, who, as you're about to see, will be on a path towards implosion once Iran's people get their freedom. And then there's a female journalist on Fox saying, China is calling for an end to the war in Iran, and energy supplies are getting squeezed. China is the world's largest importer of crude oil. More than 20% of China's oil comes from Iran. And then they show a clip of President Trump saying from the Oval Office, they're going to be in for a lot of hurt. And then Cash shows an independent reporter on the ground in Manhattan, in New York City. And he's surrounded by several people, mostly men, unloading just tons of these big, brand new, professional, neon yellow, big protest signs that are mounted on long wooden poles. And they say, hands off Iran, with big exclamation points, just like how they were saying a couple months ago, hands off Venezuela. So then this indie reporter, he's very polite, but he's holding a microphone, and he says to these people moving all these big stacks of these brand new signs around from the truck against the wall and from the wall to the street, and it's a lot of activity like worker bees. And he says, hey, how are you doing, guys? Where are you headed with those signs? And the people that are unloading and stacking the signs, they just ignore him. And the reporter says, you guys doing all this for free? And then he also says, show this to people who say that this, that any of this is, quote, grassroots, end quote. He's being sarcastic. Yeah, it's not grassroots, listener. Those are all professional signs. They're expensive. They're all brand new. Like, they keep showing up for all these protesters / rioters all across America with everything they can think of to go against America. They hate America. They're paid to do this. Most of them are. And it's just ridiculous. Okay, so then Cash shows another Fox News clip of Secretary of State Marco Rubio talking. And Rubio says, we're going to unleash Chang on these people in the next few hours, days. In the next few hours and days. You're going to really begin to perceive a change in the scope and in the intensity of these attacks, as frankly, the two most powerful air forces in the world take apart this terroristic regime. And then it cuts to another news anchor saying, it's all about the oil. And then he says, of course it's about the oil. You guys, being China, import 70% of the oil to your, import 70% of the oil to your economy that it requires to function. So Xi Jinping, and then this is still the reporter. So Xi Jinping, hold my beer. The indie reporter on the ground in New York City is shown again. And he says, we're going to Columbus Circle for a protest that Roy Neville Singham is paying for, a CCP billionaire who's trying to sow division into this country. And now everyone will see that none of this is natural. And he's saying that meanwhile those worker bees are busily moving all the stacks and stacks of signs from trucks against walls and taking them from the walls and moving off camera into the street. And they're doing a lot of work. And then Cash says, holding up his phone to the camera, he's showing the screenshot of a headline that says, U.S. just took out 2 China-friendly leaders in 2 months. Why has Beijing done very little about it? And then the photos that are shown on this newspaper headline, that has Maduro, and then it has Xi Jinping, and then it has the Ayatollah Khamenei. So then Cash says, look at this. The regime's backed up by countries like China. They are on their way out. And nobody is talking about how these dictatorships, these despots, they have benefited countries like China and Russia for a very long time. And once they're gone, these countries will be headed in a direction they never imagined. Because for years, the Venezuela, Cuba, Iran axis didn't just back itself up. These puppet states have directly aided Russia and China in their efforts to evade U.S. sanctions and make money while funding the projection of power and influence on the world stage. And China has a very special relationship with Iran. They buy 90% of Iran's sanctioned illegal oil. They pay for it in their own currency. And without that lifeline, China, well, they don't have the ability to do any of the things that some people might be worried about. And without China's money, Iran doesn't have the ability to pursue nuclear weapons and build ballistic missiles, revealing that the people on the streets of Iran, fighting for their freedom, aren't just in a war against their own government. They're also up against hostile foreign actors they could never hope to stand against unless, of course, those hostile powers are also trying to subvert and harm the United States, which lines up the ducks for exactly the type of rescue mission we're seeing in Iran. With Iran supplying raw materials and drones to Russia, as well as being China's oil lifeline, it becomes pretty clear that invasions of countries like Ukraine and Taiwan wouldn't be on the table if regimes like Iran weren't around to make it possible. And then there's a female journalist on Fox saying, China is calling for an end to war in Iran. Its energy supplies are getting squeezed. China is the world's largest importer of crude oil. More than 20% of China's oil comes from Iran. And then Cash says, look at that. 20% of China's oil comes from Iran, and it's all illegal, sanctioned oil. That is, the sale of it. No, sanctioned oil. And that oil, the sale of it, just props up the dictators that have been running this place for 50 years. But now that the fall of this regime looks imminent, the people of this country are about to experience the prosperity their own country offers them. Should their government embrace capitalism and freedom, which is going to be nightmare news for communists and despots the world over who don't agree with these type of systems, especially when, as you're about to see, the only way a country like China or Russia can survive is with this regime support network, which is falling apart. Venezuela, it's no longer part of that network. Cuba's on life support. And now Iran. They're the last piece of the puzzle. Once they're gone, this whole thing collapses and it's going to rewrite the globe. And then it shows a male journalist on Fox saying, our number one global competitor and the biggest risk to our superiority, both economically and a bit militarily, China. And since China's doing everything they can to hurt us on trade and currency manipulation and a number of other things, Trump said, okay, I can play that game too, and I'm better at it. You guys, being China, import 70% of the oil to your economy that it requires to function. So Xi Jinping, hold my beer. And then Cash said, wow. So China, they're bringing in everything they need to run their economy and to run their military from outside sources. And I have to say, listener, as a side note, not everything. What about rare earths? Yeah, what about rare earths? Okay. Then Cash says, they need help from the outside world if they want to have a massive military and gas it up and tell it to go do something. Militaries run on oil. They don't run on electric power. It's never going to happen. They need fuel in the tanks of the jets and every single thing. And this explains why we had the pro-Maduro protests. Do you remember? They were telling Trump to keep his hands off Venezuela. Hands off Venezuela. Hands off Venezuela. We had those for a little while, didn't we? Because China's getting oil from Venezuela. And then I have to say, note listener, welp, not anymore. Not anymore. And then Cash says, enough for them who wanted to fund that territory with assets that they placed in the country. And now that Iran looks like it may experience regime change as well, this is nightmare news if you want to buy your oil in your own currency, evade sanctions, and project power on the international stage with that oil. And let's see. Note, listeners, not to mention to be able to flood the earth with dirt cheap. Oh, that's my own note I put on there. I'm reading my own note, guys, and I forgot that I wrote it. So I wrote it to you guys to say, not to mention to be able to flood the earth with dirt cheap factory made in China products that undercut the earth's local economies all over the place, creating big problems for other countries who want to sell their own products in their own markets and on the world stage. And then back to this clip. There's a Fox News male journalist again saying, Trump has taken away over 20% of their oil supply. By the way, that is paid for in the yuan, not dollars. under the BRICS currency umbrella. 90% of the oil leaving Iran was going to China. That's crazy, Cash interjects. And then the news reporter continues, of course, Iran was a state sponsor of terror and was building a nuclear weapon. And that was the primary reason to do what he did. However, this was a pretty close second that no one is talking about. And a few libs picked it up, and it's like screaming in the streets, and it's like, it's all about the oil. It's all about the oil. And then the news anchorman says, of course it's about the oil, right? So what? Trump's the first guy to actually not deny that, by the way. And then Cash says, but it's not about the oil in the way that people say it is. They say the United States wants to go get the oils from these countries and make itself rich. It's about oil and money. No, it's about oil and peace. So yeah, it's about oil, but it's not for the reasons people accuse it of being about oil. If you can't power up your military, you're going to have to be peaceful pretty quick, aren't you? You're going to have enough oil to defend yourself, yes, but to wage a massive international conflict for a very long time, well, good luck with that. At the exact same time, look at where China's money is going for this oil. 90% of Iran's oil is going to China. That means Iran is essentially funded by China. And that means that the people in Iran have no freedom because their government is propped up and stays in power with money it is getting from China. To do what? To build ballistic missiles, to build a nuclear program, not to benefit the people of that country one bit. And you've got a people who are oppressed. They've been oppressed for a long time. They've got a government that says they hate America. The ducks all lined up for this operation. And then back to the Fox News journalist who says, Iran has what is believed to be 20 trillion in oil reserves. Another 10 trillion in gold, lithium, copper, and a bunch of other things that were all being traded in the yuan, not the dollar. If China came in with the yuan and started trading all the oil on the yuan, America could actually lose our ability to print money, which would implode our economy with the debt we have. And then Cash says, he talks about the armies of paid protesters we see on the streets in America, screaming and hollering, rioting, etc. But they don't understand that if the United States loses its ability to print money, all of the fraud, all of the schemes, all of the fake daycares they support, you think we're going to be able to keep paying for those? Absolutely not. Those people have no idea how important it is to disenfranchise our enemies and save the people of Iran at the exact same time, which protects the people that live in this country. Then the Fox News guy says, Trump just stopped that dead in its tracks, and no one's giving him credit for it. No one's talking about it. No one's covering it. All these things are related. Trump's push to take back the Panama Canal from China, people laughed at him. They thought it was a joke. But what it did was it actually forced a huge swath of China's trade to spend an extra $30 million per boat to go around South America. Greenland, massive national resources. People thought it was like some pet project. It makes us not relying on China for rare earth metals. And then Cash says, even America's allies are not immune from hostile takeover. And then the Fox News guy says, it appears Trump is like the only one trying to keep China contained here too. Everyone else is just absolutely asleep at the wheel. In fact, they're buying the stuff from China in mass rather than from US. You probably noticed that the stock markets are going a bit crazy today. First off, calm down. It'll come right back. It'll be fine. It's one day. Mostly, though, because the Strait of Hormuz being shut down. And everyone jumped, was like, how the heck did Iran shut down the strait? Oh, Trump, duh, blah, 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 blah. They started freaking out. Iran didn't do anything. You know who did? And this is going to blow your mind. And then he cuts to President Trump in the Oval Office back when he was sitting across from Chancellor Friedrich Merz a few days ago. President Trump said, "This is not the age of Churchill. I will say the UK has been very, very uncooperative with that." And then I'm saying to you guys, listeners, the podcast I put up right before this one, it goes into all the funny business that the Lloyds of London did regarding cutting off the insurance for ships traversing the Strait of Hormuz. Most definitely the satanic pedivore evils out of City of London and the Crown too. They have been the covert, big, crushing devil boot on America's neck for so long. They had America listed as the Virginia Company, their colonies still, their property still, until President Trump's 2017-2018 capitulation tour that he took. And one of the places where he went was he went to England, and he went to that ancient book of deeds in Westminster Abbey, and he signed his name on it, and he took back America. And that's how he became the exchequer of the earth. Because the foundation of the satanic financial empire, financial power, was in that 1 square mile area that's a city-state called City of London, that's surrounded by the old brick wall of the Roman Empire. And I've spoken about this umpteen times on my YouTube channel, listeners. You can go there. You can listen to the Controller series, find out a lot about that. Okay? So then back to this clip here. It's saying, back to the genius move of President Trump kneecapping everybody regarding Strait of Hormuz, Lloyd of London insurance refusal. He ordered the United States Development Finance Corporation to provide at a very reasonable price political risk insurance and guarantees for all financial security of all maritime trade, especially energy traveling through the Gulf. This is available to all shipping lines. If necessary, the United States Navy will begin escorting tankers. And then Cash says, look at that. That is essentially a free promise because we've got those carrier battle groups over there anyways for another purpose. Those carrier battle groups are in the Persian Gulf right now and over by this strait, freeing the Iranian people, getting rid of their regime, and they're not going away anytime soon. They're going to be there long enough to stabilize the region. And this may have just tanked, and I laughed when he said tanked, talking about this, yeah, may have just tanked all of these companies whose governments over there in Britain said, you know, hey, who said allegedly, hey, let's change how we're doing things to hurt the United States and help China. Fox News guy says, so not only did the UK companies bet on China, they just lost all the revenue from the Middle East region in insurance. Because Trump's going to have the U.S. back the shipping insurance policies now. And by the way, that will be cheaper. Because the U.S. Navy is going to escort ships, making the risk lower. And the cargo ultimately garner revenue for the U.S. of A. Trump kind of for the win. And then Cash says, people don't give the president enough credit when it comes to foreign policy. And this is something that is absolutely important for the day-to-day lives of people like us. Because guess what? U.S. companies doing more business, well, what does that lead to? It leads to prosperity here in America, where those companies are based. It benefits our economy. And what do we have now in this country? We've got an affordability crisis. So we need more jobs in our country. We need our businesses to prosper so that they can hire and grow. At the exact same time, we need safety from regimes that want to build missiles and attack us. So this is a good thing. Allowing the status quo, this regime support network and all that it's allowed to prop up is bad news for the people of Iran, America, and the entire free world. Here. And then I'm going to go to Benny Johnson. He put up this really short clip this afternoon. And he had titled it, What Did We Just Drop on Iran? And what I'm going to put it, what you're seeing on this clip, listeners, in the thumbnail is I'm putting this clip of this, what I'm going to talk about here. That's what it looks like. It looks like a sunrise, right? It looks like day. Like you see like the golden light in the sky just spreading out everywhere, and what looks like a big sunburst, a fireball sunburst popping up from the earth. But that was actually what we're going to talk about right here. It was actually at nighttime in Iran. That wasn't daylight, but that's what this weapon did. Okay, here's what Benny put up there. He said, "Did war just change forever? Iran was just hit with something, some type of weapon that turned the entire sky blue. And then a ball of yellow shot up directly from the ground, a fireball that went effectively into space. Was Iran just hit with a laser weapon from space? Say what now? What kind of a weapon is that?" He shows a dark nighttime vista in Iran, and then the power grid goes out. It's totally black, total darkness. And then this horizontally spreading blue light, this intense blue ball of blue light hit. And as it spread out, it had like these big wings coming out from it. And then it hit, listeners. And then the sky was covered with this brilliant yellow, huge dawn, like the entire horizon. It would look like the dawn happening. And a brilliant, bright ball of yellow, like a fiery rising sun, just sprang up from the ground. And the whole thing looked like dawn. It looked like the dawn was there, but it was nighttime. And it was like a reverse brilliant sunrise that sprang up from the ground. And then Benny says, "Look at that. What the hell is that?" Literally. And then, listener, you can hear the Iranians who were filming this on their phones from their apartments, like in their high-rise apartments. And they were all talking, and they were all so excited and in shock and awe, like filming this. They were just, I mean, I couldn't understand their words, but they were like making also sounds like, oh, and they just couldn't believe what they were seeing. It was incredible. Yeah. And then Benny said there were intense airstrikes in Karja going on. And then we see another Iranian filming on their phone in their home at night what just happened when that space weapon hit. They're filming in it. We can see that intense blue ball of light with those big, huge, like wings of blue light coming out from it from side to side. We can see it even more clearly. And then it just expanded like, and then it just hit. And then all that yellow happened that I described. Night became day. And I'm saying that's a fitting metaphor for this battle of dark versus light. Woo! Night becoming day. It's incredible. So, also, I'm not sure, listeners, but right after that, there was now things, and you can see it for yourself, it's all across the media, that the U.S. took out 16 mine-laying ships that Iran had in the Strait of Hormuz. So I've never, that sounds like a hen laying eggs. Mine laying ships that were laying mines, dropping mines in the bed of the Strait of Hormuz. So 16 of them, boop, they were just hit and taken out. They were all vaporized. So that's the end of this. I have something, I just didn't want to go on too much longer with this, but I have something very interesting too to put up, continuing on this, to give more news specifically about the son of the Ayatollah Khamenei. But I'll save that for the next clip that I'm going to put up. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe when I join my YouTube channel and get notified. Thank you. I end all of my clips with and drop some comments too. I like to see your comments. Keep it respectful. You don't have to agree with me, but what do you have to say about it? Give some emojis. Let me see them. That's fun. So thank you. I end my clips with very short closing prayer, which is in Sanskrit and Telugu. And what I'm saying is, God bless all beings in all worlds. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yes, peace, peace, peace. Peace through strength is what we're all looking forward to when this is all over. Hallelujah. Yes, peace through strength. God bless you and yours. I'm sending much love and big hugs to you and yours. I'll see you when I see you, and bye-bye for now.